Welcome to the Winedown, an afternoon podcast where two techie blokes sit down over a bowl of wine and chat about what's happening in the world of tech. Enjoy while Scott and Nick open up about their week in technology.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the Winedown. I'm here with
Scott.
Hello, Scott. How are you?
Hello, Nick. Welcome again. How are you going this week?
I'm going well. I've been out and about. I know you wouldn't know what that's like, but I've been a day in the office. I've been to the pub. And you are at.
I'm at home this week. Yes, but I tell you what, I have this lovely bottle of Wolf Blass Grade Label 2002.
Oh, very nice.
I thought it was about time we drank this. And of course, you open it up, you got to let it breathe just for a little bit. And yes, Barossa area, Clare Vale, Clare Valley, McLaren Vale. Quite a nice drop. It's even got some gold medals from reputable wine shows, not just gold medals from Fred wanted to give out a medal, so
I have seen bottles out there with lots and lots of medals. Well, I'm drinking one of these. There we go. Let's see if that focus.
Yes. So that's actually an interesting range. So it's the elephant in the room that links in with some other marketing brands where they've actually got some decent wines, and they've good drinkable wine. It's not going to win World's Best Wine Award, but it's also not going to be spat back out as soon as you try it either. It's actually quite good. So they've got a few ranges in there, and
that's cool. And you paused there, so I don't know what that's going to do to the live stream, but there you go. I think one of us has internet issues, and seeing as Trevor had internet issues this morning, I'm going to blame it on you. But I do know that they've been mucking with my NBN recently.
Now I understand. Oh, well, that's all right. We'll work it out.
We will do. Very nice one. The observant people will notice I actually have a little bottle of wine because I have been doing these wine downs and realizing when I get to the end of it that you can't just leave a half bottle of wine sitting there. So I've gone and finished that. And it was the other day, my wife said to me, she said, "Oh, we're going to get the kids to cook once a week, and why don't we do it on one of the nights on a Wednesday so you can supervise? Because after you've done that wine down thing, you're no use to anyone."
There you go. Oh, that's good. We've productive efficiencies.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What are we talking about today?
So look, it's we thought we'd have a chat about the current sort of personal computer style technologies available on the market, laptop, PC, and in one respect, you sort of you're going to talk about a computer? Well, yes and no. There's a few things happening and if you look at what's been going on in the last couple of years, you'll notice some trends, and they may not be obvious trends if you're sort of outside of the industry. So we thought we'd cover a little bit of detail around that.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I'm constantly being asked, out socializing. You'll remember that, Scott. It's something you used to be able to do.
Yes, I remember that. Yes, that was something in the I'm sure it was just after the year 2000, people were able to do that.
Yeah, I think it was. But when you're out talking to people, one of the common questions you get asked when they realize you're in technology is, what computer should I buy? Right, yes. And that's not saying, do I get a Mac, a PC, an iPad, a Windows tablet, a Surface? There's some genuine interest out there as to what choices is it you going to. I don't know if you've done it recently. I know you haven't, but you go to JB Hi-Fi and you're met with this plethora of devices. How do you decide which one's for you?
Well, that's it. And look, it's an interesting, but in some respects quite detailed question, and it's also a question that a lot of people in the IT industry really want to avoid, because it's sort of like going to a painter and saying, "What paint should I buy?" And they go, "Oh no!"
It is a bit fraught with danger. You're dead right. So let's look at let's before we talk about brands or anything. I think there's. Go on.
Sorry, one thing before we actually just get into that, I wanted to bring up a couple of things because we talk about security a little bit in our topics. You're
going to talk about your security thing, aren't you? Yes.
Yeah, well, this is so today I had the one of the worst, or one of the worst email spams I've seen in a while. It's one of those malware phishing attempts, but it had in big letters, password expiry. And it looked very real, as if Microsoft had sent the email. But then you start looking at it. Hang on, they've spelt password incorrectly. And you look at, you think if you're going to go to the trouble of sending out a spam attempt to capture, phishing attempt to capture people's credentials, you'd at least proofread something to the basic part of at least working out, did I get the two words in the key message spelt correctly?
I'm thinking that they're not after the top 50% of society with these, right? They're after people who aren't.
They're going to achieve
reading.
that goal. That's and the funny thing about this is, if you scroll down below the spam message a little bit, below where they're trying to do this phishing attempt, and it says, this message has been sent from Microsoft, and it had Microsoft's address and all that sort of thing. A couple of lines below that, it's an ad. Do you want to buy an umbrella? And an ad for something else. Hey, click here to sign up to blah blah blah.
So they've added ads to their spam.
They've added ads to the spam. It was brilliant. You should see it. Anyway,
wow, that's cool. Now I must say, one of our listeners has asked us to make sure we focus on the right answer here. So when we're talking about the devices you're going to talk about, and we're going to leave your other security thing till the end.
Okay.
What the question should be: what do you want to achieve with technology?
Ooh.
Understand. It's almost Mahan Kausar helping clients succeed. Seek first to understand, then be understood. But I think in a more casual setting, when somebody says, what computer should I buy? Answering it with a question of what do you want to achieve with it sometimes elicits a glassing, and maybe not the right response. Maybe I get the wrong pubs, but certainly there's an interesting question there. So let's talk about, and I reckon, I'm just going to do this off the top of my head, I reckon we want to talk about processor, we want to talk about memory, we want to talk about disk, we want to talk about form factor.
We do.
And then we want to talk about platform.
I will say today, though, the internals in the machine, they are fairly commoditized. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at things like processor and memory and disk, there used to be like, I need this type of processor for this work, or this type of processor for this work, and memory, maybe I need this speed or that speed, because it. Even the standard types these days are actually pretty decent.
And however, the memory requirements I found are slightly different on a Mac than on a PC.
Yes,
whereas a PC, you probably want 16 gigs of RAM. I reckon that's a good number. I like that number. You can get away with 8 if you're doing Office-y stuff. On a Mac, 8's big. At least on the Mac Mini I bought the other day, 8 was the maximum I could get in it.
Yeah, the Mac has been a lot more memory efficient than the way PC apps work.
Cool. Now, for a PC, processors, you've got a choice of a Core i3, a Core i5, a Core i7, or a Core i9.
On the Intel side, yes.
On the Intel side. And they just seem to get more expensive.
They do, the further up you go. But the fact is, though, you wouldn't really be using an i9 on a low-end laptop.
And you certainly wouldn't want to do, you wouldn't need an i9 if you were doing Office.
So
my wife's studying data science and machine learning at the moment, and she probably needs an i9.
Yeah. So what happens in the i3 range is like entry level. It'll actually run. It's pretty good, but don't expect to do anything really sort of chunky on it, or heavy workloads or anything like that. It'll grind to a halt pretty quickly. Think of it as like a little 4-cylinder car. It'll quite happily zip around. You put some stuff in it, do a few things. But your i5 is generally your mid-range machine. It's more than adequate for most generalized workloads. And if what you're doing these days is you're running a few apps, you're on the web running some SaaS apps, which is really just, I've got a browser, and you're doing email and a few other things, and maybe running Office or something like that, it's going to work the majority of the time.
Yep.
They generally don't have, there are a lot of variations of the processor ranges. So like the i5, for example, there's easily 20 or 30 variations of that chip, but the common ones that you would find in the stores, there's generally only about 2 or 3 of those that tend to keep popping up for general use. A lot of the other ones are looking at specific workloads and specific types of applications, and you would need to know about that if you're doing that.
So I'm going to be picking an i5 for middle range, or I'm going to be picking an i7 if I want to do some number crunchy things.
Yeah, look, i7's got a few performance enhancements here and there, maybe a bit better for gaming to some degree. It depends on what you're doing and what you're running. Older applications, you probably wouldn't notice a lot of difference. So that's an important thing, because unless the application has been written to take advantage of modern technology, then it won't understand how to do it, and it'll all just run fairly slowly. One thing to look at, though, is the speed. So a processor may have so many cores, and a core is like an individual part of it that can execute things at once. Look at how fast it goes. They can anywhere from about 1.5 gigahertz up to, I say, 4, even capping in at 5 if you tend to go pretty quickly. That's really like the high end of things. But most workloads, machines run quite happily around 2, faster around 2.8 to 3. But
Okay, so we've got Intel processors. There they are, the i3, the i5, the i7 and the i9. We're going to pick an i5 or an i7 probably, and we're going to look at cores and speed.
Well, now we start looking at what happens to the AMD processors.
The AMD processors. I don't know much about those. I have one in my Surface laptop. My daughter has one in a gaming PC. They have lots of cores, but they're not as fast, is what I see in general.
Which means, and this is the thing, they will work better in certain conditions. So if they've got more cores that run at lower speed, what that could mean is they could run more low-end applications at the same time. Now, is that what you want to do on your laptop? Probably not. But if the application, if you've got a big game or something like that, and it's written to take advantage of the processor, then you may get a better overall result.
Yep. So for your buck, AMD, more cores, lower speed in general, but that might work for you, right? You want to do lots of things in parallel. Gaming's a great example. Gaming likes doing lots of things in parallel. And so for these, it's all bang for your buck, right? They're not all lower speed. You can get really fast AMD processors and you get really fast Intel processors.
And just to make things confusing, we can then toss in ARM.
So ARM is different, right?
Yes.
ARM is very different. So ARM is one of my favorite processor types of all time. ARM comes from the BBC-B microcomputer, which was one of the computers I learnt on as a kid. When they moved from the BBC, they were run by a company called Acorn. They came up with a RISC, reduced instruction set processor, which they called the Acorn RISC machine. They changed it quite quickly to the advanced RISC machine. Still designed by those guys back there. It's now the most popular processor in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. They make billions of these things,
but nobody knows.
Yes, and nobody knows, because it tends to be the processor inside your mobile device. It tends to be inside your tablet. It tends to be inside your washing machine, and all sorts of things. It's a very low power processor, which is able to be almost totally turned off when it's not doing things. It has loads of benefits, has a smaller instruction set, but ARM, we're not going to find a lot of ARM yet in the computer land, although we're just starting to see them appear in the Windows PC space, right?
Yeah, and this is it. So in order to differentiate further, or I guess get a larger chunk of the supply chain, Apple and both Microsoft have said, hey, we're developing our own processors now. We're not necessarily going to go and just buy the Intel ones off the shelf and put them in. We want to design our own processors and use those as our preferred approach. Now, they're not going to go out from scratch and try to start building a processor. They're going to go and license someone's technology, such as ARM.
Unless you're Apple. What about the Apple M1, which has just come out recently? Is that Apple silicon?
As far as I'm aware, they're making, or they're subcontracting someone to make it. But they've worked out that if they get into that part of their supply chain, which they have, there's obviously money to be made rather than relying upon a third party to deliver the processors for you. But even the M1 and of course Microsoft's got its own chips now as well in the Surface, which is fairly new. They're not saying
those I thought. Yeah. So I'll just qualify, because the ones in the Surface Book were AMD Surface Edition chips. They're now building some Surfaces with Microsoft ARM chips, aren't they?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And this is the whole thing where, if there's a special version of it, they can commit to the volumes, which obviously someone like a Microsoft or an Apple can, and that's the level of sort of volume you need to get any benefit in this space. They can make a few more dollars here and there. And also, though, they don't have to worry about my application, be my operating system or whatever, has to run on all these different types of processes and all these different speeds and all these different ways and still work properly. All of a sudden, they're now saying, oh, look, we've got these 3 or 4 processors that are our own flavor that we use across our new modern machines. We're going to make sure it works on those ones really well.
So we're going to get to a point, right? So we're talking about internals, right? We're talking about processor, disk, and memory. And this is where people can get confused. Processors we've gone through, right? There's the Intel, the AMD, the ARMs, the Apples. Memory is measured now in gigabytes, but a small number, 8, 16, 32 is kind of what's generally out there. Obviously, you can get more, but that's kind of what's out there. Yeah. But then we've got disk as well. And you've got the difference between hard disk and solid state disk, HD and SSD, and you've got the size.
And you've got the mix in between as well, where you get things like, there's the Optane, or there's also the half and half ranges that sort of have, we've got a little bit of solid state in there, and for the stuff used less frequently, we're still putting that back onto hard disk.
Yep.
But the majority of the machines that we would purchase these days, we don't have any spinning disks in them. No. They use more power, they're slower, and it's not that expensive anymore. A solid state drive, a memory drive, is actually pretty cheap.
So we're now getting to the point where today, if I was going to get a device, I'd want a decent processor, i5 or i7, or a decent AMD or a decent M1 with 8 to 32 gigs of RAM, and at least 512 gigs SSD or more, or
more.
In business, I have a terabyte of disk on my machine, but I carry around an awful lot of stuff. For a lot of people, you don't need to carry around that much because it's all sitting in the cloud, right?
And that's it. And if you've got your environment set up in a modern way, you can actually quite happily get by with a 256 gig drive.
Yep.
Now you might save $50 here or there, or $100 on your price, not having to go to higher ones, but if you're not saving the data locally, then why do you need the storage for it?
That's cool. So now we kind of know what the internals are. Let's talk about form factor.
I will say that there is one more internal, which is really important, and you've got to make sure that this exists, and it's called a TPM, Trusted Platform Module. Now, what
in the world of the PC.
In the world of the PC, yes. Any machine that comes with Windows 11 on it would have this built in, so you don't really have to ask about it. But it's a security chip. But if you're going to go and start building your own machine, and people do, it's just like people build their own cars, you can go and get your own system boards, you can go and get your own cases and everything like that. Just make sure if you ever want to run Windows on that, or in particular Windows 11, you've got that TPM module in there.
Yeah, see, my daughter has built her own machine, and it has TPM. So, so look at that for cool. Most motherboards will come
most do
these
days,
building your own. Cool. So now form factor: desktop, laptop, tablet.
Just about everything we supply into clients these days is laptop.
Right.
More or less.
Touchscreen or no touchscreen?
Most are not touchscreen.
Oh wow. Okay.
No, it depends. Look, I think we've really yet to see true useful touchscreen applications come into some laptops. It's nice if you've got it, but they're not. I don't think we've really quite got that there yet. If you're on a tablet, absolutely, and if you're using your laptop as a tablet, absolutely. But what we're seeing with a lot of laptops these days now is people carrying them around. They take them if they're going into the office, they can plug them in, connect them up to an external monitor and keyboard, and then they're using that big monitor. And then they can take them home and plug them in and use that. If they've got a touchscreen on the side, then those big monitors they've got aren't really providing any value if you've got to have your application running on the little laptop screen.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. No, I hear you with that. And I always thought the useful thing with touchscreens was to be signing documents. But now with electronic signing, I don't actually draw anything. It is what I do find useful is the whiteboard feature in Teams. And we use that quite a lot in my team. We'll do a whiteboard session and I'll be drawing on my screen here and they'll get the feel for it. I think that, and there's some things that are useful and some things that aren't. I think if you're into art and you're into drawing, it replaces the old Wacom graphics tablet, right?
Oh, look, absolutely. That creative element, or the creative shops that have got the and look, this has moved across to iPads a lot now. The new higher end iPads with the Apple Pencil, they're really promoting that. Hey, we are the your virtual drawing board or your virtual canvas. Go for it.
Cool. So the form factor. So you're selling laptops.
Just about laptops everywhere. Yeah.
Is the desktop dead?
It does have specific applications. So where are you going to require a desktop? Okay, one, specifically if you're a high-end gamer and you want to be physically inserting multiple bits of hardware in your machine, you need somewhere to put it, obviously. So you need a desktop like that. If you're going to be doing a lot of I/O, a lot of high-end calculations, let's say you want to all of a sudden become a Bitcoin miner for some reason.
Yep.
And you need the grunt in the machine. The processors in the physical desktops are always going to be a bit faster than the mobile versions in the laptops. They are.
You can do better heat dissipation in a larger device. My daughter's got a machine with like 9 fans in it. My laptop's struggling with its one that's going very loud at the moment, but never mind.
But then it's designed to, that's the application or whatever it is that you wish to use on it.
Yep.
And if you just wish to do basic Office and whatever else, you probably don't need that much grunt, and the processor can run at a slower speed, not generate as much heat, not need as many fans, and et cetera, et cetera.
So one of the things, if you're selling laptops, then the killer feature is battery life, right?
It is. And look, battery life has been improving gradually over time. Every year that gets a bit better. The new MacBook Pros that have come out, there's a 14 and a 16-inch version, up to 20 hours.
Wow.
Of battery life. I thought
wow.
That's all
Except
right.
they're running the M1 processor, and so you can't run Windows on that hardware, can you?
Well, no, you would run Mac OS on a Mac.
I've always run Windows on my Macs, but never mind.
You're doing it the wrong way. That's the issue. Have you tried running Mac software on a Windows box?
No. You can do it, but you're not allowed to, I believe.
Yeah, there's a licensing issue. Yes. Anyway, but yes, you're right. You can do it. I'm reading. Yes? You can run Windows on your M1 based Mac because it's ARM, and so you can use Windows for ARM, which is not quite full featured yet, but it's kind of getting there. So that's quite interesting. And you can now run your 64-bit applications on ARM. And of course, there's Office for ARM, but of course, you can't just take any Windows app and make sure it runs on your ARM machine. You've got to. It's like it's in a different language. You've got to translate it.
We I'm writing software. You have to compile specifically for the ARM platform.
Yeah,
which we're not doing with all our stuff. So
but it is more efficient. Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. And that's why they're getting a lot better battery life, right? The processors just way better. And what's really funny is there's a presentation on the net, if you're into this, on YouTube, where the guys from ARM are presenting to Apple in the early 90s about taking up the ARM chip, and they decided not to. Think of where they could have been now.
Yes.
Anyway, cool. So form factors, laptops, that's what everybody's buying. We think about RAM and disk and processor and battery life. No more desktops. Tablets in business.
Getting there. And I think Apple's getting there from the iPad side. You can sort of see where it's heading. They've got their iPad OS now. They've got their Mac OS. It's starting to converge. You can see where that's heading. Of course, from the Microsoft side, it's still Windows 11. But they've had various attempts at this in the past. They've had their Windows S mode to try to sort of lock it down to a very lightweight version of Windows that only accesses the Windows Store.
I still like Windows XP Tablet Edition, but maybe I'm just old. Well,
look, I think the funny thing is every every Microsoft attempt at this doesn't seem to catch on. I don't know why. It's they don't really seem to have got it right yet. I don't know. It's keep trying. I get it. It's good, but how many people are there? Windows CE, for example,
which was wildly popular at the time. It was on all sorts of devices.
And the Surface R.
Oh yes, well I've got it's not here. It's my Surface Go, but I also have an original Surface RT. This is a Surface RT.
Yes.
Yeah, so it had, I think if I remember rightly, it only had one position that the fold-out thing went to, not more than one. That was it. One position, well. different charging slot. It did have a micro SD slot, which is fascinating. Mine's actually, I think, there's a micro SD card in it. Ooh, I wonder what's on this. I haven't looked at that for years.
So there we go. Just find a nice little RT compatible. Yeah, but yes, I guess the thing is they haven't quite got that thing working yet. And I mean, a couple of years ago, I tried using an iPad as a mainstream desktop device. You plug in a monitor, everything. It's not quite there. It's not. You're limiting what you can do.
So the other thing you have with Microsoft getting closer to Android is you've got Android getting closer to Windows. So something like Samsung DeX, which means you can plug in your phone to a monitor, a keyboard, and a mouse and start working, is a fascinating set of steps forward.
And that actually works really well. We've been testing that out previously.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, we did promise, and we're coming up on time, right? We're 27 minutes in. It's been awesome. We did promise we'd tell people what laptop to buy. I reckon if you're in normal business, you want probably an Intel i5 or i7. You want 16 or 32 gigs of RAM. You want between 256 gigs and a terabyte of disk. You want it in a laptop form factor, and you want more than 10 hours of battery life.
Yeah. You know what, though? Whereas as IT people, we talk about that, I just get the feeling, and I'm pretty sure that Apple's worked this out as well, the number one question that people want to be answering, and the one that they ask first is, what color do you want?
Yes. I believe blue has the most RAM.
That's right. And red goes the fastest. But if you go to all of either the iPhone sites or the Apple sites, whatever, the very first question, what color do you want? Oh, do you want some more memory in it? Or do you want a different processor? Or do you want yes, but what color do you want?
Yes. You can have white or white, I think, with Apple, isn't it?
Yes.
Cool, Scott. That was awesome. I think we're up to time. But that's been...
I will toss one thing in quickly. We mentioned talking about running Android applications before.
Yes.
On Windows. This really worries me because from a security point of view, I really don't feel that Android is as secure, perhaps, as some of the other platforms.
Remember, it's not the Google Play Store. You don't get the Google Play Store. You get the Amazon Store because it's more strictly vetted.
Well, that's good because I mean there was a campaign that went out recently called Ultimate SMS. I was just reading the results of this at the moment. They actually published 151 Android applications into the Google Play Store, I will say, and the idea is if you loaded one of these applications, and they did all sorts of things. It wasn't about the app, but the fact people would download it, and the first question is, "What's your phone number?" So people, register with your phone number to use this application. So people would type this in. When you typed your phone number in, it would send the phone number back to the back end of these applications sitting on the internet, and it would go and subscribe the phone number to a $40 a month SMS service, which you then have to go and when you get your next bill, work out what's this, and then you got to go and remove it and take it off and blah. So 10 million downloads of these applications occurred.
Oh my goodness!
Think about this: $40 a month times 10 million, $400 million. That's not a bad starting point. And if you work out that, okay, hang on, we've tracked all these people down. Where are they? Well, it doesn't really matter. They got $400 million. They're off running around somewhere now.
Yes,
it's a worry. And as fast as they could actually go and remove applications from the store, new ones were put up there.
No, good point. Talking of stores. If you want to go buy a laptop, you can obviously come to the TribeTech store. I just thought I'd do a plug for you there, Scott, seeing as you sponsored today.
You could, but I will say you're probably better off if you're just looking for one for home or an individual one or something like that. You'll probably find decent deals at the major retailers. So the major retailers will go.
They buy in bulk.
Yeah, they'll say we're going to sell 1,000 of these quarter, so give us a special price on a 1,000 buy lot or a 10,000 buy lot or something like that. Whereas we'll just go and look at what's in stock in the various suppliers around the country and be able to say, oh, here's one.
Yes.
Yeah. I will say laptops are hard to get at the moment. Shipping delays,
chip shortages,
delays, component delays, transport issues. Yeah. So don't be surprised if there are delays trying to get whatever you're after.
Cool. No, get that. All right, that's been brilliant, Scott. Thank you so much.
That's all right. Thank you, Nick.
And everyone, if you do like what you hear here, please subscribe. If you're on YouTube, click that little bell which notifies you when we release a new video. We're here every week on a Wednesday at about 4:15 Australian Eastern Standard Time. So we look forward to you tuning in. We will answer live questions in the comments. We also ship this as an audio podcast, so you can listen to this on Audible, Amazon.com, Apple Podcast, iTunes podcasts, anywhere where you can get podcasts, really. We're wherever. And
being perhaps here. We'll get a better internet connection for Nick next week.
And we'll get a better. I did see the little thing pop up. But thank you so much, Scott. And we all hope you have a fantastic day.
Thank you, Nick. Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.